Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for um, hanging in there as we took a brief recess. And now we're back for the final two items on our our discussion agenda. So we will now move on to item number 4, which is, excuse me, um, item number 4 is hold on. The McGarvey Crest Whitna Short-Term Rental Administrative Special Review, file number 22-CONE 3386. And I believe Logan Graves will be presenting on this item. So Logan, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and proceed with this next item. Thank you.
Yes, sounds good. Okay, so this is the McGarvey Crest Whitna Short-Term Rental Administrative Special Review, project number 22-zone 3386. The address is 4411 Storm Mountain Drive in Drake, and the subject property is located approximately 0.7 miles south of the intersection of Galucci Drive and Storm Mountain Drive. The applicants and owners are Josh McGarvey, David Kress, and Jeffrey Whitna. The property is zoned RR2, rural residential, and is served by on-site septic well with access off of Storm Mountain Drive. The lot is 7.07 acres in size, and the applicants are requesting approval for a small short-term rental comprised of 4 bedrooms and 1 additional sleeping area for a maximum occupancy of 10 guests. The Larimer County Land Use Code defines a short-term rental as a dwelling rented to transient guests for short-term lodging when not occupied by the owner-renter. An STR use is classified as a low-intensity accommodation use and is permitted in the RR2 zone district following administrative special review. A community notice was sent to 32 neighbors. The department received comments from 4 neighbors in opposition of the STR, with an additional 3 opposing comments received after notice of the public hearing was sent. Concerns include traffic, road maintenance, wildfire, water conservation, among other things. And comments are included in the packet in addition to the applicant's response to the concerns. Administrative special review requires the general review criterion Article 643D to be met, in addition to the supplemental review criteria for small short-term rentals found in Article 335B2. And due to the nature of the neighbors' concerns, the Community Development Director determined that the application be referred to you all for decision. And staff has found that the proposed administrative special review meets or will meet all criteria in section 335B2 and meets 3 out of the 5 criteria in section 343D. Staff does not have a conclusive determination on criteria 1 and 2, and so the development services team is not making a specific recommendation on the McGarvey Crest Whitna short-term rental, and has presented all the information by which you all may base your deliberation and decision. And the 2 suggested motions are displayed, the first to deny the application and the second to approve the application subject to the 8 conditions outlined in the staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Logan, for that presentation. Colleagues, do you have any questions for Logan at this time about this application? Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, it seemed like there was some discrepancy on the number of bedrooms. Was that? It said code compliance noted that there's only 1 permitted bedroom, not 4 is built. Permits are in process to resolve this, I guess. So that would have to be resolved before there was an approval, right? For those bedrooms to be. I mean, I guess.
Yeah,
We would
that's
have to know,
correct.
right? Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, so the applicants are currently working with
They're
code
working on
company.
it. Okay. Okay, thank you. Also, the septic system, and that would also need to be upgraded before there was any kind of approval. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. I had the exact same questions. Commissioner Foster, any questions for staff?
Not at this time. Those were some of the issues that Commissioner Stevens raised about the septic and also about the discrepancy in the bedrooms. That's been asked.
Great. Sounds like we all had the same questions. So
If I,
I might have
excuse
some
me,
other-
Madam Chair.
Yes.
If I might note, just the first condition on this one is the same as we dealt with earlier, where it should, if the project is approved, it should automatically expire in 3 years rather than 2. So
Okay.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I was going to point that out again. I don't know why that drew, but like, I know why, because I was reading through and like, wait a minute, why are these all different? So thank you for pointing that out. That was something I was going to bring up as well. So I think I might have more questions after we hear from the applicant. So unless you have other questions, we'll go ahead and have the applicant come present, and you'll have 10 minutes to present. And please approach the podium, introduce yourself, and you'll have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, commissioners, for having me tonight. And my name is Josh McGarvey. I'm the first one on the owner's list there. Just wanted to start by explaining who I am and who the other 2 names are on there. We are not a company. I live in Fort Collins. I'm an architect here, and I've lived here 15 years, so I'm a local person. My friends, David Kress and Jeff Whitna, decided to go in with me on this property because it was fairly expensive, and we all had a desire to have a cabin up in the mountains to get away from town here. So I live in Fort Collins. David Kress, who I've known for 15 years, lives in Loveland, and David's cousin is Jeff Whitna. So we're all pretty close in terms of our relationship. So just to clear that up, who we are on all the names on there. So like I said, one of the main reason that we purchased this property last year was we just really wanted to get away for ourselves. And so that's my first point here, is that this is not a full-time rental request. This is something where probably 2/3 of the year we're using it on our own. And so we're looking just to supplement the time that we're not able to be up there with some other people that can rent it as well. So this is not a full-time rental, and some of the comments and concerns are about the road condition. We are not anticipating renting this during the winter. We have been through a winter with it, and we're able to use it personally, but we do not want other guests to be up there during the winter. So we can move on. I can just give you a little overview. So you guys probably know where Storm Mountain is, but this is in the upper filings of Storm Mountain. Storm Mountain is divided into 2 areas, the lower part and the upper part. And so this is right next to the monastery trailhead. If you've hiked that hike back to the rock climbing area there, the beginning of the trail actually starts on our property. So it's right at that position. Next slide, please. So this is a 4-bedroom. Once we have our official permits, 3-bathroom house. Part of the reason for the confusion, whether it's 1 bedroom or 4 bedrooms, is we purchased the property with everything finished, but it didn't have the proper permits. And so we're going through the as-built permit process concurrently with this. So it really does have 4 bedrooms. We've had the inspector up there to look at it. He confirmed that the 4 bedrooms are all legal. Our main outstanding thing is that septic system that you guys brought up, and that's very important to us too, to expand that. It wasn't expanded to the proper size to meet the 4 bedrooms that already existed, and so we already have a contractor ready to do that work to get that permit in place. Some of the neighbor comments were also about connection, both telephone, internet, emergency services. We're actually hardwired into the high-speed internet on the property. The high-speed internet is provided to the whole neighborhood on our property. That's where the receiver comes up from Loveland, and so it's hardwired from there to our house, and so we have much faster internet there than even at my house in town here. So we have that, and we have cell phone service as well. we're at the top of the mountain, and so you would prefer probably to get on Wi-Fi if you're going to do a conference call or a Zoom meeting, but you can call even without that at our property. Next slide. So we are on 7 acres. It's very private, very secluded. In fact, you can't see any of our neighbors' homes from our house at all. And in terms of fire mitigation, we do have some forested areas on the property, but the house is nowhere near those. We actually have a cleared out space. I don't know if you noticed on that first image that I showed, but it's kind of at a rock outcropping where there's very few trees. And so it's at the safest point of the entire property where the home is located. We back to National Forest, so just to the kind of south of us there, that's National Forest land, so we don't have any neighbors on that side. There's a property owner to the west of us that originally there was planned to be a road there, but it never got built, and so they don't have any access to their property, so there's nothing built on that. And then our other neighbor on the east side is supportive of what we're doing, and we've talked to them about it, and yeah, they're very vocally supportive of it. Next slide, please. I just wanted to point out real quick that almost this whole neighborhood on the upper part is almost entirely vacation homes. It's not near any schools. There's not families running around. This is almost solely weekend vacation homes. And so if you look at the mailing list, the 33 names and addresses that it was mailed out to, I believe there was one that had a Drake address, and it was for a trust fund, not for a local person. So we don't feel like, in terms of a neighborhood context, we feel like it's a very good place to have a short-term rental because it's all vacation homes. The main concern is the fire safety, and we take that really seriously. You know, this is our investment. This is a beautiful home, and we definitely do not want it hurt. And so we have outlined a couple of different ways that we're going to reduce and minimize the risk of any fires happening because of our guests. First of all, we have at least a 4-layer notification system in place. We're going to tell people before they book, after they book. We have signs on the driveway at several locations when you're driving in, and then in our user manual, we also have that. So there's an excerpt on the screen talking about, this is the second page, and it's very large, about how there's no fires allowed whatsoever. So there's no campfires, there's no smoking, no fireworks whatsoever on the property. We also have, sorry, you can go back one, thank you. We also have security cameras on the outside of the home in several locations to monitor regularly if there is any activity that is fire related. And then we're going to have a strict rule that says if we see any attempt at smoking, fireworks, anything like that, we'll ask them to immediately leave without a refund. In addition to that, if there's something, if it's a time of extreme fire danger, we will have a voice or video call with them or meet them in person to explain additionally how important it is to follow these rules and to abide by the no fire ban or by the fire ban. Next slide. Some of the neighbors are talking about road abuse, road conditions. That road, if you've been up there, is a challenge. And it takes the right kind of person to want to go up there. We're very aware that not every person is going to rent this place, and because of that, not everybody wants an adventure, but some people do. And so that's the clientele we're looking for. I personally really love getting out there and challenging myself to get up there, and but we're going to warn them ahead of time that it's not your normal city road. And we're also going to ban all the ATVs, four-wheelers, dirt bikes, things like that on the roads that I know a lot of just random people go up and use on the weekend up there. So we're not going to allow that. Next slide. So I guess in conclusion, yeah, we love this place. We consider this our home, not an investment, but we would like to have the opportunity to also rent it out. And so we've worked hard over the last year to upgrade it, and we're working through all the permitting processes to get it up to the current code requirements. And yeah, I just would love to share that with others. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. And colleagues, do you have any questions for this applicant at this time? Commissioner Kofalos.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Josh. I have two questions. One, would you clarify the statement you made about 97% of the homes are vacation homes, secondary homes? That's different than being a short-term rental. So what
Correct.
did you mean by that?
I guess I'm pointing out that most of our neighbors don't live there full-time. And so I think some of the concern with short-term rentals, like we've heard in some of the past applications, is full-time residents being bothered by the transient nature of a guest rental. One of the neighbors I talked to recently said they were up there 3 to 4 times a year. And I feel like that's an advantage to not be in maybe a context of a traditional neighborhood to have this. So I just did some basic math based on the addresses. I don't have any true statistics, but I know there was one Drake address that one of those mailers was mailed out to, of all of them.
Thank you. My second question, I will direct to you, Josh, and possibly staff can help out. I'm recalling that Storm Mountain area was subject, well, first of all, the Cameron Peak fire went really close to that area, and so there were significant, or there are rather significant burn areas, and therefore there was, I think over the last couple of years, there have been significant flooding issues. And I'm wondering if the 7 acres that this house is located on has been subject to that, or the road has been washed out. I mean, that's what I've been hearing about the Storm Mountain area. Could you speak to any of that, sir?
I think the bridge that goes to Storm Mountain was damaged or washed out during the 2013 flood, if I'm remembering my history right. Our particular property is at the top of the mountain, so it is kind of the opposite of a flood zone. It's more of a wind zone than anything. So I don't think there's any specific damage on our property from the floods. I actually don't know any other history of the neighborhood, if there were any other damage besides that.
And I
bridge.
understand you're at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
I understand that. I just think in general there have been some concerns with that area regarding flooding. And maybe staff can speak to that at some point.
Yeah, I'm not
Thank you,
sure.
sir.
I think we'll go ahead and do public comment, and then I might come back and ask questions unless Commissioner Stevens, I do have some questions, but I want to hear from public comment. But thank you for the presentation. So let's go ahead and open this for public comment. Hopefully we have Karen, who's been able to, is she called back in?
Karen was on when we started this item, but has since dropped off again, and we can continue to keep an eye out for
Okay.
her. And I can just, again, suggest that anyone online who would like to talk, please raise your hand using the raise hand button. And it does look like we have one hand raised. That's Holly Charbonneau. So I will allow Holly to talk.
Hello, Holly. This is Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shack McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you for raising your hand for public comment. If you wouldn't mind identifying yourself, where you live, and you'll have 3 minutes for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. My name is Holly Charbonneau. I live in the lower filings at 1703 Palisade Mountain Drive. And I think Josh gave a very nice presentation, and it seems like they've covered a lot of the concerns that I have, with the exception of the fact that they are in the upper filings, and that is very difficult to get to in the event of a fire. And I'm very happy to hear that they are not going to allow any fires at all, and they're going to have cameras. That was my main concern, because we have had issues here with short-term rentals where people have left and thought that they had fires put out, and they've reignited due to the wind, and we've had very close calls as far as starting another wildfire up here. So, my concern is just being able to get to their property from our fire station here on Storm Mountain. That's a good, I would say 20-minute drive on a good day from our fire department here on Storm Mountain.
Thank you.
And that's all.
Okay.
That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Holly, for joining us and for your public comment. Okay, so is Karen?
We don't have Karen with us, but we do have another hand raised.
Great.
Kelty Wakely.
Okay. Hello, Kelty. This is Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shag-McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you for raising your hand for public comment. If you'll say your full name and where you're from, you'd have 3 minutes for public comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Board. Kelty Wakely, and I live here with my wife, Joy Podgorny. We're at 4403 Storm Mountain Drive. We're actually neighbors with Josh and David and etc. I did want to thank Holly for her comments too, as well as Josh's comments, because we are very concerned about the fire risk up here. I believe he presented the facts correctly about the nature of the mountain, where we're very happy to hear that fires are extremely restricted, as our neighboring property. I'm actually looking towards Josh's house right now, and Holly's as well. So we're full-time residents up here. We're just to the northeast of Josh's property, the only east residents to the adjacent to Josh. We've met Josh. We feel that their plans are adequate. I do have concerns because we do have a well, and we do have off-grid utilities that we hope to preserve those. So I'm glad that we're hearing that they will be pursuing the completion of those permits, and that satisfies us. We've exchanged numbers with Josh and David, the property owners. We're very willing to be in contact with them if they have any issues or if we see any issues. So we're comfortable with them as neighbors, and we will be very vocal if there are any issues with the property.
Thank you, Kelty.
Thank
Are you finished? You have another minute if you'd like.
No.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
great. We appreciate you joining us for your public comment. Thank you.
All right, and we do have Karen with us now, so I will go ahead and ask Karen to unmute next.
Hello, Karen. This is Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shag-McNally, Chair of the Board. Thank you so much for hanging in there and joining us for public comment. If you wouldn't mind identifying yourself with your full name, where you're from, you will have 3 minutes for public comment. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Miracle. Okay. So my name is Karen Yaskaitis. I live at 46 Horseman Valley, which is catty corner from 4411 Storm Mountain Drive, across the street on a diagonal. And I have lived up here for 50 years. I have gone through 2 forest fires and 2 floods up on the mountain in a no flood zone. Resources and amenities are very thin, if existent at all. Community people have had the privilege of living up here for as many years as they have, and we have functioned as a community. Nearly every home on this mountain is being turned into a short-term rental, a Airbnb, or even chicken coops. In fact, Kelty, who spoke before me, his shed was a chicken coop prior to being a Airbnb that was rented out nearly every single night prior to his ownership. They also rented out a yurt. The county is not doing their diligence in following through as far as legalities of properties up here. I was thrilled to find out that I had not one, but 3 new neighbors with the purchase of 4411. Immediately, I was probably the first one to welcome them on the mountain. And I am thrilled with the improvements that Josh and David and the Texas investor have done at the property. They have cleaned it up. They're fabulous as far as what they're doing. But as I came up the mountain not 5 minutes ago, there is a vehicle parked on the curve, which is where the fire trucks have to come through. The county is not monitoring up here for the safety of the people that are living here. We have guns going off every single weekend, AR rifles shooting out to nowhere, bullets whizzing by. A friend of my son was shot. Okay, we have fires every single weekend of the summer. We put out forest fires that of unattended campers have left and they've reignited, or they haven't put them out at all. We have 0 communications up here. Theirs is the only house that has internet connection. And if the county continues to approve one after another, and I guess they have no way to stop it, okay? One after another short-term rental, there is no communications up here
So,
for 2 miles.
Karen,
Okay, yeah.
and I'm sorry to interrupt you. You've had 3 minutes. Would you like to make a statement or two to wrap up your public comment? I'm sorry to interrupt you, and thanks again for persevering.
Okay, well, I don't know if I had no signal, so I don't know if that house is being watched by somebody or not. But if it is, the somebody who I think it's being watched by may not have licensure, and they certainly don't have reputation. So can you reiterate who's the home watch on that home?
So I can't answer the question during public comments, just for you to make public comment. So
Okay.
you can continue to listen to the hearing, but we certainly can ask that question as we go forward for who is the property manager. But are you done with, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to wrap you up your public comment now.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's good. You know, they're doing a beautiful job on their property. There's no question. It's just this whole area is non-communication. There's no water, no phones. Okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Karen, and thank you again for understanding and calling back in for your public comment.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, so anyone else? Okay,
We have one more hand raised at the moment, and it is Tom Shaner.
okay, Mr. Shaner, this is Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you for calling in for your public comment. If you would identify yourself and where you live, you'd have 3 minutes for public comment. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Tom Shaner. I live here in Greeley. I have had a property up on Storm Mountain since '94. And my problem is that I'm totally against rentals in general, such as Karen, as far as BRBOs, BNB, STRs, whatever they're called. To rent the property is just putting more damage to other properties as far as the roads, one way in, one way out. We have problems with the roads in general. Now, after listening to Josh McGarvey, and I also texted him twice, he seems to be covering all the bases. And I agree with Karen on the rentals. Everybody seems to be renting, and and that's not the way to go, but I do think that Josh and his buddies are following the protocol and they are doing everything they possibly can. And to go ahead and put up with all the loopholes and tangles and strings just to get this going for them, I think they have done a very good job at that. I'm still against rentals, but as far as the Josh McGarvey and the people that are going through the actual loopholes to get it, and it doesn't sound like it's a profitable thing for them. It's just an intermediate to get them by. And basically, I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment. Okay, do we have anyone else with their hand raised?
There are no additional hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. So I will ask for anyone in the room, if they have would like to make a public comment by raising your hand and approaching the podium. They'd have 3 minutes. Okay, let's check one more time online, just because we did have some people, and I know that area's got connectivity issues, so just want to make sure we're not missing someone.
No more hands raised.
Okay, so with that, we will close public comment. So now we will give the applicant 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I appreciate all the comments, and as you can tell, we've already been in dialogue with everybody that commented tonight, and so we're planning to continue that dialogue, and we've been very open, in fact, with the entire Storm Mountain community. We went out of our way to talk over the HOA email board to every single person to let them know who we were and what our plans were. And I already gave my phone number and my email address to every single person on the mountain so that we can continue the dialogue. And so I appreciate the comments that we've heard. I think some of the comments about connectivity, there are a lot of properties that are fairly undeveloped at the moment up there. Ours isn't one of them. We do have high-speed internet. We have Disney Plus on the basement TV right now, and all the things like that. And so it's very comfortable to live up there. I also want to mention that with our fire ban, we feel like it's on our property, that our proposal is much safer than the campsite down the road, which is open to anybody. It's a free National Forest campsite that we can see from our deck, so we can see the fires that are going on down there, and we are part of the community. We would love to help Karen put out those fires if people are leaving fires at those campsites. But we actually have David, one of my co-owners. He just joined the Storm Mountain. It's called SWAG. It's a brand new committee, Storm Mountain Action Group, Fire Action Group, or something like that just started this year, and he's become part of that. So similar to I think the Spears case earlier tonight, we're involved with the fire committees that are going on the mountain as well. And we've been working very hard on our property in particular to cut down and remove all the dead limbs and trees from the previous fires over the last few decades. And so trying to think if there's any other comments that I need to address, but that's what I've got. So.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. So you can have a seat. I'll see what questions we have. So colleagues, we've gone through public comment, rebuttal. So do you have any questions for staff? I have a few, but Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, one of the questions I had was there no comments from the fire? Who is the fire service? Is that? And I didn't see any comments from any. fire service?
So the fire service is the emergency services station, and so, the wildfire department went out and did a inspection pretty recently and sent their inspection report, and they were just really minor corrections that are needed. Just essentially the applicants need to clear some vegetation, and everything else looked good.
So there was no concerns about getting an emergency vehicle up there or egress kind of issues for the people who would be staying there
No.
or expressed? Okay, thank you.
Issues were noted.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Thank you. I'm a little bit perplexed why, I mean, this area is a high-risk area for wildfires, and I believe there has been flooding, even though it's on the top of the mountain. But that can affect access and what's coming off the mountain. So I don't understand why we didn't hear from the emergency services folks or Estes Valley or the various fire protection districts.
And I'm just to add on to that, isn't it, whose district? Isn't it Loveland Fire Rescue Authority, the Storm Mountain? And I know there's a station up there. I'm surprised, knowing that we didn't hear from them. So do we have any answers on that? Because, and I'm just curious about that. So, because I have a lot of concerns about it. Yeah.
I can do a quick check of, and Logan may know more, but I'll do a quick check of the files that we have associated with this, you know, who we've referred it to, and
Yeah.
if
Do
we
you
have
other
anything that-
questions, sir? 'Cause
Well, I'd like to get, I'd like to check on that, and I'd also like to hear from our code compliance supervisor if she has any information about some of the concerns that I've raised. But I just want to make sure that we are sure that the fire protection districts that are meant to protect this area, which is a very rough area, have been we've requested their input, and if there's no concerns, and that's an important factor. If there are concerns, we need to understand that.
So if I might, Commissioner, just build on your question, because I have some of the same concerns. I've driven that road several times. It frightens me. I don't know how their fire vehicles even get up and down that road. And then there's the long-term access, and then there's no water up there. Even if there's old regs, new regs, there's still the access about having water being up there in time. So I just want to build on his things. I don't know if Commissioner Cafalas has driven that road. That road scares me, so I'm just curious about that.
Good evening, Commissioners. Amy White, Code Compliance Supervisor. I don't have answers to the Loveland Fire and Rescue Authority, but Rebecca's checking on that. I don't know, Commissioner Cafalas, if you might be thinking of Streamside, which is where we're having the majority of the flooding, which is a little bit further west from Storm Mountain. So getting up to Storm Mountain is quite an adventure in and of itself. And then to address what Josh was saying, according to the map, we've got 5 approved. This area is notorious for us. We have a lot of other code compliance cases up there that we're trying to track down. This is Inspector Key's area, and he's up there every other week looking at stuff. We've even been working with the county attorney's office to bring some of these folks to court. So it is an area that we do struggle with. It's one of those where they leave the ads up and then they wink wink and they're renting the yurt over here, and so it is an area that we struggle with. And they are in the process of the permit, getting those additional, they had finished a basement without a permit, and then they changed a room to another bedroom. And the issue is that the septic leach field, my understanding is, isn't big enough, so they're still dealing with that, which is why the permit can't be finished, the as-built permit for the bedrooms.
The current owners didn't build things, added things were the past ones. I mean, just
I think I'm sorry, I didn't look at that, Commissioner. I can look in the research, I've got the file down here, but I'm not certain as to that.
Okay. Commissioner Gonzalez?
I'm wondering if we were able to check on any type of response from the fire and rescue folks.
I do know that they have that fire station up there for that very reason. I could also text, is it Chief Dan, and see if she has any
Fire
comments?
Marshal Dan and Chief, Fire Chief Sendelbeck, but I'm not sure if he's
So, yeah,
available.
I can certainly give,
Well, I would like something in writing that spells out, you know, what their understanding is of how they would serve that area. And perhaps if we can't get that kind of information, it might make sense to continue this hearing until we have that information.
Yeah, I do not see any documentation within our files, and I'll make space if Logan's got anything that I'm not, she might have access to that I'm not seeing. I do not see any letters from the fire district specifically, so I don't know if that means they reviewed it and they were okay with it, or they didn't review it, but I don't see any letters from them. They are usually pretty diligent in getting us referral comments. I know that this is a project that changed hands within the planning department as well when we had staff leave, and so we don't necessarily have the full history of what original emails may have been sent out at the very beginning of the project. So we may have incomplete information on that.
But forgive me, is there a record that we made those inquiries of these referring agencies?
I see a referral email that went to some agencies, but not necessarily all, and I don't see Loveland Fire Rescue listed on that email. So I can't confirm that we sent an email to them referring it to them, and we do not have a letter from them.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, I would be actually in favor of tabling this till we could get some of that information, just because of the remoteness of the area that we're talking about. I'm not comfortable without those remarks making a decision tonight, so.
Yeah, I'm inclined, I mean, this road is, I just can't imagine anyone who's not used to it. And I've driven it, or I've driven a passenger, I still have a lot of concerns, and if we don't have any kind of feedback from the Fire Rescue Authority, I just have, great pause to approve something, even with saying they're gonna allow ATVs and all these other things, it just takes one time. So, I don't know, is that something we can do, County Attorney, just table this and take a motion? Because I do have pause, because we don't have that. I'd like to know why we didn't and what happened, and since sounds like there's some confusion about why or why not, then we should probably try to find that information.
Yes, you can table it. I would pick a particular day to table it to. And, you can't necessarily guarantee that the fire district will respond by then, but the staff can certainly reach out to them and try to get some kind of a response. And the applicant has an opportunity to try to talk to them and see what they would need to do.
Commissioner Stevens, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, the other thing that comes up with that sometimes is, do you have to, I think you've closed public comment already, and so ideally what would happen is you just reconvene to sort of start from where you are now and move forward and not open the public comment back up.
That's what I assumed. Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask staff, and maybe Rebecca could respond, how long, what's reasonable to ask them to respond. So if we're rescheduling to a date specific, that we would, like whether that's a month out, would that be sufficient time, do you feel like, for them to respond?
I think if we brought this to the attention of the Fire Rescue Authority and let them know that there was some urgency to the review, they would prioritize it. So we have we've missed well, let's see, we don't need to do a new mailed notice if we're tabling it. So we've got the next hearing that's available would be July 31st. And then after that, thank you, Jenny, is the 14th of August. So those might be two potential options for tabling this until then.
Well, the 31st would give it 1, 2, 3 weeks. The 31st, yeah, that would give us 3 weeks. That seems reasonable. So my recommendation is, and if you looked at the agenda, that seems like that's we can slot that in there, or is that a full agenda?
Give me a moment to take a look. I lost that page. I think that would be fine. I don't have the list of items right in front of me. It's lagging here, but we've got three items scheduled.
Okay.
So we do have the option on the 31st of the 3 o'clock hearing or the 6:30 hearing.
Well, if we can put it in the 3 o'clock, that would be fine, because we don't really, right now, we don't have a 6 p.m. scheduled. I hate to schedule a whole nother set of hearings if we can squeeze it in the earlier one.
Yes, and I'm saying, so 2 of the items we have scheduled for the 31st are on consent. It's just one discussion item that's planned for the 31st, so that agenda's got plenty of room.
Great, thank you. So I will ask Commissioner Stevens to make that motion, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move to table item, the McGarvey Crest Witness Short-Term Rental Administrative Special Review to July 31st in order to get more information from the fire authority about this property
May I ask you add 3 p.m. land use hearing?
at the 3 p.m. land use hearing.
Is that appropriate motion? I just want to make sure we had the time, because I know that another thing with the, didn't put the time. Okay. Thank you for that motion, Commissioner Stevens. Any further discussion? All those, Commissioners Cafalas?
I just want to express my appreciation to the applicant, them needing to demonstrate a bit of patience here. But I think it's in the interest of the process to get this information. And if the information is such that any wildfire concerns are minimized, then that would likely be in your favor.
Well, I don't know. We'll look at that information once we receive it. So, so any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you all, and I appreciate it, and thank you for the applicant for being here today, and I'm sure staff will be helping you kind of navigate that next hearing. So thank you, and Rebecca, I don't know if we can help him with that information now or soon, but thank you so much. So we'll now move on to the last item on our discussion portion of the agenda, number 5, the Willard short-term rental administrative special review, file number 23-ZONE 3421. And addendum reason was an updated development services team recommendation. And we'll go ahead and have that presentation now. And is it?
This is Logan Graves presenting again, and just to elaborate on the addendum, to be clear for anyone who might be watching. The original packet had a recommendation that you're used to seeing for short-term rentals that recommended neither approval or denial. The revised version of the packet shows a recommendation of denial for this item.
Thank you for that. I was gonna, thank you for clarifying that, and I appreciate that update. So we'll start, Logan, with your presentation. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. This is the Willard Short-Term Rental Administrative Special Review Project number 23-Zone 3421. The address is 205 Bella Vista Drive in Drake, and the subject property is located approximately 0.2 miles south of the intersection of Big Thompson Canyon Road and Bella Vista Drive. The applicant and owner is Bruce Willard. The property is zoned O, open, and is served by on-site septic well with access off of Bella Vista Drive. The lot is 35.16 acres in size, and the applicant is requesting approval for a small short-term rental comprised of 3 bedrooms for a maximum occupancy of 6 guests. The Larimer County Land Use Code defines a short-term rental as a dwelling rented to transient guests for short-term lodging when not occupied by the owner-renter. A STR use is classified as a low-intensity accommodation use and is permitted in the O zone district following administrative special review. Community notice was sent to 21 neighbors. The department received comments from 4 neighbors in opposition of the STR. Concerns include wildfire, road maintenance, and access, among other things. Comments are included in the packet in addition to the applicant's response to the concerns. Administrative special review requires the general review criteria in Article 643D be met, in addition to the supplemental review criteria for small short-term rentals found in Article 335B2. Due to the nature of the neighbors' concerns, the Community Development Director determined that the application be referred to you all for decision. And staff has found that the proposed administrative special review meets or will meet all criteria in Section 335B2 and meets 2 out of the 5 criteria in Section 643D. The applicant does not meet criteria 3, and staff does not have a conclusive determination on criteria 1 and 2 of Section 643D. So the Development Services team is recommending denial on the Willard short-term rental file 23-zone 3421 and has presented all the information by which you may base your deliberation and decision. 2 suggested motions are displayed. The first to deny the application and the second to approve the application subject to 8 conditions outlined in the staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Logan. Colleagues, do you have any questions for Logan at this time? Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you. It appears that the concern raised by our community service development team was regarding the Estes Valley Fire Protection District. The house is not accessible, the bridge is not rated, etc. Are we aware of any conversations between the applicant and the Fire Protection District to see if there was any way to address these concerns?
I will defer to the applicant on that. I know that Stacy, the inspector, went out, and then she and the applicant did have a conversation after, but I never heard back from Stacy on whether her comments could be addressed. And I think with the bridge, it was kind of an extenuating circumstance.
Thank you, Logan.
I have a question, but I think I'll wait till after the public comment or after the applicant's presentation. So I think we'll go ahead and move on to the applicant's presentation. So is the applicant here?
He is, I think. Who wants this?
I'm sorry, sir.
My laptop with the whole presentation, I don't know, give it to somebody?
Sir, if you would approach and talk to our staff here.
We've got a way to plug your laptop in. Do you have it on a,
It's on there right now.
like, do you have it on a flash drive? You can,
Oh, no,
we're
sorry.
operating on a system right now where we can't
Oh.
plug your computer
Oh, okay, well,
in and
never
show it,
mind.
but if you've
Oh.
got a way to transfer it to me, I can get it.
That's pretty techy. It's okay.
Or if you're able to email it, I can,
No,
okay.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought I was supposed to bring the actual device. Save the best for last, I guess. I'm Bruce Willard, the applicant for 205 Bella Vista Drive. My wife and I, since everybody's got a background, this is our family cabin. It's been our family cabin for quite a period of time. This wasn't, we didn't venture into this as really an investment. I live in Colorado, was born in Colorado, lived here all my life, except for military service. Went to college here at the Air Force Academy. My family, my father was born here. His father ran the Fort Collins stables. He was born here, so we go way back. The cabin's only, I think, transferred twice in the entire history of the property. It's a 1950s cabin. The intent for us to get involved with a short-term rental came about because of an unfortunate health diagnosis for me, and so thought it would be a good idea to try to both use this cabin and also rent it when we weren't using it. We're thinking of it as a 2-season short-term rental. We'll be using it alternatively and renting it on the short term, which was what our plan was. We've done quite a bit of work in anticipation of this, maybe misunderstanding coming to this point after such a lengthy period of time. For example, there was an issue that said part of it was the floodplain, and so, had the thing surveyed to prove that it's not the floodplain. Replaced all the systems and gotten to all this point when the issue that has most recently come up, the neighbors, what I had on here is the distance of the neighbors between their cabin. We actually own 2 35-acre parcels. So for all practical purposes, the cabin sits on 70 acres. And the distance between the neighbors and our cabin is significant, more than 500 feet in all cases except for 2 of the cabins, and they're still hundreds and hundreds of feet away from our cabin. We're very cognizant of fire issues, and so, I have in there, but the staff already has my workbook, because that's the order we went through, that prohibit any kinds of fires, any kinds of smoking, that's already laid down because we understand the situation with the fire up here. We're surrounded by woods, so we certainly know as well as anyone. There are some open permit issues that we're going to get to, but we've probably taken care of everything beforehand, and that was because way back in the day, 40, 50 years ago, they did an addition of a garage. We're well aware of that. It'll have to be permitted after the fact. So I guess as far as the fire issue, I don't know whether to discuss it now or in rebuttal, because certainly I was taken by surprise that when we had it inspected for fire, they said, well, your bridge is only 10 feet wide and we need 12 feet. And so in a nutshell, that says that the cabins that have been over there forever, according to that criteria, have no fire protection. And so my response to that is, well, gee, why do you care then who's here? If they're not going to get fire protection, what difference does it make whether it's a tenant staying for 31 days or a tenant staying for 30 days, or an owner-occupant? If you say that you've got to have a bridge that's 12 feet wide, and I have subsequently found out what it's going to cost to replace the bridge, and it's well above $100,000. I'm actually the one that repaired the road and the bridge after the 2013 flood, because I had an in with Peter Kiewit, and they came back and rebuilt that whole area. So I don't know what to say about the fire protection other than I guess they're saying who they can't provide fire protection to. And I find that a rather strange position. And again, in rebuttal, I'm kind of surprised. So here's the point where I found out that we were denied, and that was today, about 30 minutes before I came over to this meeting. up until then, my understanding was that there was no opinion. So how do I get to a point after 7 months that I find out 30 minutes before the meeting that it changed the opinion from, no opinion from Rebecca and planning to denied? So I'm in denial about denial. How do I spend $75,000 to try to meet all the criteria and then find out a half hour before the meeting, which had been delayed twice? I mean, we're supposed to have this meeting in early June, and it got delayed. That happens. I'm not mad. And by the way, I'm not mad at anybody. I think Logan is wonderful. Hey, Logan, how's Albuquerque? So I don't have a beef with anybody other than the situation that seems to have transpired to leave me here with a denial of 7 months and $75,000 30 minutes before the meeting on something that had been apparently investigated and been forever. So if I can't have a short-term rental because of the fire department, what about everybody that's living over there right now? And two of the cabins past me on Bella Vista are brand new. They built the cabins. How'd they get a permit? I mean, I'm not trying to get those guys in trouble. That sounds, I don't mean to do that, really. I'm very happy they built new cabins. They're very nice. But it begs me to wonder how this all came about in this process that seems like I'm having my nose held on one end and my rear end kicked on the other. Okay, I digress. Back to the short-term rental, if you want to know, we were going to manage it within an hour. We're going to manage it ourselves because we have a vested interest in our cabin, and I have a backup with Glenn up at Ponderosa that we had talked to in case my health gets to a point where I can't get up to the cabin anymore. So with that, I don't know whether you want to ask me questions directly or want me to sit down and rebut or nothing.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation, and I am sorry to hear about that you learned about this just before the hearing. So what we'll do is, colleagues, do you have any questions currently for the applicant while he's standing here? Or we can let him sit and we'll have public comment.
Okay.
And then we can ask staff some of these questions, so.
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay,
All right, well, I don't mean to tongue lash everybody, really, I don't, because I understand everybody's doing their job. It's just, I mean, this afternoon, really, you understand the frustration.
certainly, sir, and I certainly hear and understand your frustration, so.
Okay,
thank you. Let's have, do we have anybody signed up? I don't see anybody on the list in the room, but do we have anybody online who wanted to make a comment about this application?
No, we don't have any hands raised, and in fact, we no longer have any public attendees on Zoom either.
Okay, so I'll just for process, I'll ask folks in the room if there's anybody who wants to raise their hand and make public comment regarding this application. Okay, so I will now close public comment. So, so no really need for rebuttal, so there is no public comment. Colleagues, do you have any questions for staff or the applicant regarding this application and presentation? Go ahead, Commissioner. Remind me to have the same question.
I don't necessarily have a question. I just want to make a comment that regarding the concerns expressed by the applicant, Mr. Willard, about the, quote, last minute changing. What we receive is a recommendation regarding the criteria, and ultimately we're the ones that make the decision whether to act on that recommendation, whether it was a recommendation, not a conclusive recommendation, or the one that is before us. Ultimately, we make that decision, and the matter, the comments from the Estes Valley Fire Protection District are very significant in terms of public safety. So that's something we have to take into consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions. I feel like I have the information I need to make a decision, so thank you.
Okay. Kind of unfortunate series, it's unfortunate the applicant just found out. When did we get the Estes Park fire protection? I'm looking for it in my packet, just.
Yeah, we could look up the date, but I just want to apologize to Mr. Willard. We should have communicated that that was the staff's recommendation as soon as we determined that that was the recommendation that would be made. And so that would be our standard process, is to communicate that as soon as there is a recommendation to the applicant, not the evening of the hearing. And so I apologize that this is the first time that you've heard about it. And we would want to make sure that's not going to happen in the future.
So I think that would be important to, and I apologize too that you kind of just found out before the hearing. It is unfortunate that happened. And certainly, is it only the width? Is it also about the weight bearing too, or what was it? I'm just looking at I have the life safety inspection, but I also see, I see on 481, it's just, there's several photos. So I just see non-compliant, and I see this on the area, so it's just, is it just the width with the photos, or is it just, it also shows kind of the driving along the road as well? So I'm just curious about that.
Logan, do you want to summarize the findings or the
Yeah.
inspection from the fire department?
So it's the width of the road and the bridge, and the bridge is not, well, and there's no fire access as well, or water access. And the bridge is not rated.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just looking at that, on that, and I had read that over the weekend. So, okay. I think that's the only question I have at this point. So, colleagues, do you have any other questions or comments? Okay. Are we ready to begin deliberation? Commissioner Stevens, I think it's your turn to go first, please.
Sure, happy to go first. Thank you, Mr. Willard, for being here and for waiting so long, and I do apologize that you got that notification late. I will not be voting to approve this application, partially because of the, the recommendation of staff, partly because of the Estes Valley Fire Protection District's letting us know that the bridge isn't wide enough and that there's no water access, which is really concerning in an area that has a high fire risk. But also because of, I read through, even though none of the neighbors stayed on, after reading through the comments, it seems like it would cause a lot of disruption to this neighborhood. I think it would have a detrimental effect, and the property owners are very, very concerned about the bridge easements, and that the bridge was built for residents and not for a short-term rental type use, and they were pretty adamant about not wanting this kind of use in their property. They talked about things like they were worried about damage and degradation to the shoreline, talking about the road being unimproved, having an easement in place with regards to the bridge. There were a lot of documents stating that the bridge was just to be used for the property owners and not necessarily for any kind of short-term rental situations. So I will not be supporting the motion. I don't think it meets the criteria. Definitely doesn't meet criteria 3 of the recommended recommendations of referral agencies have been considered, but I do believe that it has more than minimal impacts on existing and future development of the area. So I don't think that's been addressed either. So I will not be supporting the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner Kofales.
I too am not able to support the application. Again, we have the 5 review criteria, and based on this evening, it seems to me criterion 2 and criterion 3 have not been met. You know, criterion 2 refers to a variety of potential impacts, but one of them relates to emergency services, and we've been informed that by the Estes Valley Fire Protection District that this property, which seems like it's in a very pristine area, is not accessible, and there's not water should there be any kind of a wildfire situation or home fire situation. So that is my conclusion.
Thank you, Commissioner Kofales. And again, Mr. Willer, I appreciate you being here today, and I'm sorry that you did not get notification before you came here, and I appreciate, we've had a long evening today, and so I appreciate you hanging out to the end. I too echo a lot of Commissioner Stevens' comments. I do not believe this application meets criteria 3, 4, or 5, especially very concerned about the fire department statements not only about the bridge, but the access on the roads and the lack of water access. I agree with Commissioner Stevens with the neighbors. There was a lot of agreements, even probably the easement agreement about who has really access to use that easement and across the bridge. And it seems like that is something that would also be something to address. The neighbors were very specific about how this area was kind of some of the agreements and easements, and so I think this is something that complicates the picture as well, and I agree that it does not have minimal impacts on the area. And so due to the not meeting 3 of the 5 criteria, I feel this is, I cannot be supporting this application for, and I will be voting in denial. So with that, Commissioner Kofales, would you please make that motion?
I move that the Board of County Commissioners deny the Willard short-term rental file number 23, zone 3421.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that motion. Any further discussion or deliberation? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Okay. This concludes our land use hearing agenda. We do not have any other items on the agenda. And so at 7:51, as a Board of County Commissioners, we are adjourned. Thank you.